Hi guys, this is GSMDome and I'm here with a review of the Xiaomi 14T Pro. It's just been unveiled in Europe and it's priced at around 800 euros. And finally, we're getting AI on Xiaomi phones, including Google Gemini and a solution which converts your voice recordings into text, as you can see here. Plus much more when it comes to editing. And aside from that, this phone also sports a camera with Leica optics and special Leica features. It's very good for the nighttime. That's how Xiaomi is promoting it, as a nighttime hero, and a phone capable of good videography because it has log support for colorization. Aside from that, a very powerful MediaTek Dimensity 9300 Plus processor and a pretty sober design, I would say. So the phone is here, the Xiaomi 14T Pro. Let's get started with the review. Now, design-wise, they're calling the new hues Titan. This is Titan Grey. We also have Titan Blue and Titan Black. You can tell between the 14T and the 14T Pro through the fact that the Pro has curved sides for the back. The 14T regular is all flat. The frame is flat here. It's made of aluminum, while the facade is obviously flat as well. It's a flat screen with, I would say, pretty narrow bezels. It's aluminum alloy and the back has a frosted glass effect. It measures 8.39 millimeters in thickness, and I also have to say it has IP68 certification. It can take some water and some dust. There's also a case in the box, as you saw in our unboxing. It's a pretty comfy device on account of the flat frame, but I would say it's rather beefy and big because it's, I would say, reasonably wide and a pretty long phone. It's 209 grams, that's the weight, and yes, it feels a bit heavy, particularly in the top side. So I would call it top heavy, but also sober looking with all this angularity, particularly for this camera module, which some people feel it imitates the iPhone. Now, as far as the screen is concerned, we're dealing with a quality screen here. Usually Xiaomi's have two things to remember: bright screens and customizable screens. So this one is an AMOLED. They call it Crystal Res AMOLED, 6.67 inch, 1.5K resolution, and it's actually 2712 over 1220 pixels. It's supposed to be a 12-bit panel, which you don't see every day, so lots of colors here, HDR10 Plus support, Dolby Vision, and so much more. The usual certifications like TUV Rhineland for low blue light and a solution which doesn't affect your circadian rhythm, so you can sleep better. By the way, up to 140 Hz refresh rate for the gamers. A bright panel with wide view angles and a generous amount of colors, it's what I can confirm here. Okay, now, as far as the brightness is concerned, we measured it and achieved a pretty impressive 1150 lux units. This is activated with a special sunlight mode in the settings, which expands the brightness. In the normal mode, we would achieve 851 lux, which is still pretty good. We're taking into account the larger score, and it's 14th place here, above the Xiaomi 14, above the Galaxy S24, and above the Huawei Pura 70 Ultra. Now, above this phone, you can definitely find the Pixel 9 series, Honor Magic 6 Pro, and the Pixel 8 Pro. As I said before, if it's a Xiaomi, we have a lot of settings for the screen. We have screen brightness, auto brightness, sunlight mode, advanced texture, which adds rendering effects to improve and enhance the visual experience. There's the color scheme here with extra adaptive colors and the temperature slider, and also refresh rate, which can be set to custom for 60 or up to 144 Hz, or dynamic if you want to keep things predictable. Now, as far as the benchmarks are concerned, I'm going to show you the CPU we're dealing with here. It's a MediaTek Dimensity 9300 Plus, 4 nanometer, and we have a configuration here with 12 gigs of RAM. It's actually 12 gigs of LPDDR5X RAM and 1 terabyte of storage UFS 4.0. You can also expand the RAM with up to 12 gigs. First things first, throttling. I didn't encounter any throttling here. Didn't have any problem with that, which you can see in our benchmarks. So we go here to the benchmark, throttling test. We only lost 20% of the performance here. And after 15 minutes of intense running, I would say it's just okay, not excellent, not bad. It's better than the Honor Magic 6 Pro, better than the Huawei Pura 70 Pro, and the list goes on and on. 59th place. When it comes to Antutu 10, we're on the 3rd spot, which is actually surprising for a full flagship. We're surpassing the entire Galaxy S24 series and yeah, beating quite a few models. Basically, aside from the Asusis, we beat all the other phones from Honor, OnePlus, you name it. This is Antutu 10. When it comes to Geekbench 6, We're on the 8th spot in the single core and the 1st spot in the multi-core, proving that this Dimensity must not be underestimated. Beating Galaxy S24, iPhone 15 Pro, so yeah, mighty impressive. Remains to be seen if you're also beating the iPhone 16 Pro Max, which we're testing these days. In the graphical department, we have 3D Mark Wildlife on the 14th spot. Not as impressive as before, we're beating the Pixel 9 in Solar Bay, the Honor 200, so here I can see that we're closer to the mid-rangers, but somehow still relevant in the 3D Mark Slingshot on the 2nd spot, and in Wildlife almost at the top 10. So yeah, when it comes to the GPU, we're beating last year flagships. Now, as far as the temperature is concerned, we go here, and in benchmarks we achieve 41.9 degrees Celsius, which means there's a bit of heating, while in games things are pretty okay with 29.3 degrees, one of the coolest phones out there, possibly because of a vapor chamber. Now, the battery. The battery we have here is a 5000 mAh unit. I would say it's pretty typical. We have 120 watt charging. Sadly, no charger in the box. We do have 50 watt wireless charging, which is pretty impressive. Now let's see what the battery offered us. So, when it comes to the video playback, we achieved 22 hours and 2 minutes. It may seem impressive, but nowadays we're easily cracking 25-26 hours. With this result, I would say it's basically 2 minutes better than the Galaxy A55 and 1 hour extra from the Xiaomi 13 Pro. The Xiaomi 14 had 22-29, so yeah, also pretty close to the main series. We mustn't forget that in the meantime, OnePlus Nord 4 is offering us 30 hours, while the Honor 200 offers us as well 30 hours and 58 minutes. When it comes to continuous usage, 14 hours and 28 minutes, expected more here, almost 100 spot from the 500 phones we've tested. It's exactly the same value as the Pixel 9 Pro and the Xiaomi 11T Pro. So yeah, since we brought up the OnePlus Nord 4, that one offers 17 hours and 54 minutes. Well, the Xiaomi 14 was worse at 13 hours and 53 minutes, so I would say it's an improvement. When it charges the phone, we didn't have the exact compatible charger. I had to use a cable from the box and the Baseus 100 watts charger, which offered us 53 minutes. I would have expected something like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but once again, we don't have the fast 120 watt charger. At least after 30 minutes, you're at about 51%. Of course, there's ultra battery saver if you want that, so yeah, you should maybe get the original Xiaomi charger. When it comes to acoustics, we see one speaker here, while the top side hosts the earpiece, which is for the stereophony here. Now, in order to test out the system, it's time to go to YouTube again, and not YouTube Music, but rather, okay, so a usual acoustic sample. Okay, so pretty strong volume and impressive bass, decent high notes. I would say that the bottom speaker is doing the heavy lifting. Stereophony is there, not a huge difference between the two, but there is a difference, which you can even feel, because if you cover the top speaker, you won't be missing much. So yeah, I would say that the experience is pretty impressive. Now let's see how the volume is handled here. With a typical acoustic sample test, we achieved 77.8 decibels at the top speaker and 80.5 decibels at the bottom speaker. I would say we're at the bottom of the hierarchy here. I expected a bit more. I mean, we surpassed the iPhone 15 Pro, but not more than that, and I would say we're below the Galaxy S24 series and below quite a few other models from this year. So maybe I expected just a bit more compared to what we're hearing in real life. We also surpassed the Pixel 8 Pro, but we got beaten by almost 500 other phones, including the Huawei Puras. When it comes to the other test, the gaming test, 92.7 decibels, we required at least 100 here, so yeah, once again, expected more. So we're about on similar or on par with the Motorola H50 Pro, for example. This one is a quality setup, and we may have delivered better than the maybe Galaxy S24 Ultra or something like that, but definitely not a record breaker. You can see the S20 Ultra under this model, you can see the Galaxy 4 below this model, Galaxy A34, iPhone 15 Pro, and even the Moto G85. So there are some heavy hitters here, but there's more of them above the current phone than below. And even the previous T models were higher in volume than this one. And now I think it's time to discuss the cameras. Now, as far as the camera is concerned, we have a lot to talk about here. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to talk about the selfie camera. It's a 32 megapixel shooter cut in the screen here, and I actually doubt it has autofocus. It has 4K capture at 30 frames per second. At the backside, things are happening. We have the Leica Summilux lens, and the main sensor is the Light Fusion 900 made by OmniVision. 50 megapixel f1.6 aperture, and also optical image stabilization plus dual native ISO max. We have a telephoto camera which is 50 megapixel in resolution, 2.6x optical zoom, and it doesn't have optical image stabilization. Then there is the ultra wide 12 megapixel camera without autofocus, so there's no macro thanks to it. Yeah, and aside from that, we have 8K 30 frames per second capture, super steady video, motion tracking focus, and a teleprompter feature for your vlogging needs. Now the special features are included here, so we have a bunch of Leica filters. You can see Leica blue, Leica sepia, Leica black and white natural, and more. And here we have short video, dual video, director mode, long exposure. We have a document capture, we have the portrait capture with master portrait style, Leica portrait or master portrait. We have the photo section, we have the video section with a special master cinema option and HDR caption, and we have the movie mode with a longer aspect ratio and several tweaks here which are shown here. Master cinema. You can shoot 10-bit HDR, and you also have the Pro mode here with exposure, ISO, shutter, focus, and white balance for photo and video. Okay, I would say this is pretty much it as far as the options are concerned, even though things are a bit more complex than that, because the movie mode has a 2.39 to 1 aspect and a more natural bokeh video. Master Cinema captures 10-bit Rec 2020 captures with a wider palette, and there's also, once again, HDR support. I think I'm going to skip straight to the photos we have here, and some of them are taken by my colleague in Romania and Bucharest. Some of them are taken by me in Berlin when the phone was launched. So let me start off by talking about the selfies. Okay, so the selfies are in the strong sun. So there is a strong sunlight on my colleague's face, and you can see an excellent expression. You can see the pores and a lot of details, so that checks out. And a very natural bokeh. I was even unsure if he triggered the bokeh or he just used the regular camera focus, but I'm pretty impressed by what the bokeh can do here. This is one without bokeh, and I'm still pretty impressed by the details behind him. There's a semi-soft capture like that. Excellent texture of the hair and of the face. I would say it's like a Pixel phone from 2 years ago. That's how advanced the processing has become. Even more photos here. I'm once again very satisfied with the selfie camera. Things are a bit smoother when it comes to the skin. There may be some beautification going on, but that's not a problem for me. Now, when it comes to the color calibration and things like that, I have to say I'm once again pretty happy with the colors achieved here. Let me just offer the screen orientation lock like this. Okay, so once again, colors check out pretty well, and let's see how we're doing in the zoom department. I have to admit that at maximum zoom 2.6x things are excellent, but even if you go up to 5x, the surprise is just as big as the one it was on the S24 Ultra, when people expected to get 10x results from 5x. That's what we're getting here. We're getting 5x optical zoom like results from a 2.6x optical zoom in real life. I hope you understood what I meant. So it's as if you had a 5x optical zoom camera, even though the digital is doing wonders here. I remember feeling the same thing about the Xiaomi 14 series, so it's a trend, I have to say. Once again, the colors are very satisfying and the details are caught in an excellent manner, and the colors tend to be towards more realistic rather than overblown or warm. So Huawei has warmer colors, the Pixels and the iPhones have colder colors or realistic ones. This one tends to be maybe like the OnePlus and the older Pixels, focusing on realism. By the way, excellent focusing close-ups, even though we don't have a dedicated macro for the ultra-wide camera. The texture seems to be the thing here, and it usually happens so that we have excellent textures on phones which have AI and advanced processing. That's what they're offering you, texture, even in very close close-ups. Okay, so that's it photo-wise. As you can see here, pretty impressed by everything. Maybe there are softer edges around the ultra-wide, and honestly, I feel that the ultra-wide photos have been a bit brighter than the other ones and slightly overexposed here and there, and slightly oversaturated. Let me just find, like this, for example, we can see there's a bit of extra saturation going on here. but it doesn't happen very often. It will be pretty rare. So I would say that only the ultra wide is the weak link, but not even that. Okay, so these are daytime photos. I will talk about the close-ups and the bokehs. I was very happy with the results achieved here. Now I think we're going to swap and go to Berlin. Okay, let me just find the camera photos I've taken. These are indoor shots in a restaurant in Berlin. It was very dark, and in spite of that, the image is pretty crisp. When it comes to food photos, I was actually blown away. I had an iPhone 15 Pro with me, and the photos achieved here are taken faster with improved texture, and the iPhone ones are grayer than this one. These ones have texture, color, and focus. The iPhone makes them gray and lifeless. So that's the difference. These are some Berlin shots taken in a hurry as we had to run from the rain. So regular shot and ultra wide shot. You're not missing much from the colors, which are pretty well calibrated. As you can see, a bit brighter on the ultra wide and a bit more exposed, just like I said before. Excellent level of zoom from a mere 2.6x on a very, very cloudy day. Once again, regular shot, ultra wide shot. The colors are pretty much the same. The exposure may change. These are some cupcakes. Excellent focus here and details. I would say that for one, you can see the T series rivaling the main series. I even used this phone to take hands-on shots with the Xiaomi 14T, and having a daily driver on iPhone 15 Pro, this one actually served me pretty well as its replacement, and even focused better in close-ups. Okay, so these have been the daytime shots. Now we're going to the nighttime. I actually took a special masterclass in photography with the guys of Xiaomi and the guys of Leica. We went on a trip in Berlin and we were supposed to take shots, but the rain came, and actually applied some of the effects they taught me, playing around with the ISO value, with the exposure and the focus in full rain, and achieved several artistic shots. Some of them are exhibition worthy, I would say. People running around in the rain. You can clearly see here that everybody is soaked. And the thing is that there was heavy rain here and the lens may have been affected. And in spite of that, we achieved some pretty memorable shots. Especially when things are moving, you can see people in motion here in an artistic manner. And of course, the black and white. One of my favorites is probably this one here. Once again, it's exhibition worthy. But let's not neglect what my colleague did. And let's not neglect some of these artistic shots. The thing is that you have to know how to play with the ISO and the shutter to achieve things like this. It's definitely a flagship-worthy experience, and here, just as the sun was setting, we went on a boat trip in Berlin. By the way, the river is called Spree, I never remember it. Here it was just after the sun had set, with an excellent amount of details and clarity. By the way, we were in motion, the boat was constantly moving, and actually applied here the cool watermark, which mentions the exposure, the ISO, and the aperture and things like that. But once again, let's go back to what my colleague did. So let's go here. In the settings, you're going to find an option called Auto Night Mode. I deactivated it because sometimes it tends to exaggerate. So it shows that we have an f1.6 aperture because we capture a lot of light, but you can also take them without light. I noticed some softer textures here and some brighter lights, which show a tendency to behave like a high mid-ranger. The zoom is more underwhelming at night, that's for sure, and the shots are not as impressive as those taken in Berlin. I would say the mid-range identity of the phone is shown here. You have to watch things in motion because you'll see some blur when the cars are sliding by. You definitely could use some AI to take photos as good as I did in Berlin, and maybe you can play with the settings. Honestly, I feel like I cheated by playing with the Pro mode and Pro setting after the masterclass compared to my colleague who just left everything on auto and just started shooting like a regular person. This is actually not a bad shot, to be honest. The street lights are well handled here, sorry. But this one, not very impressive. Lots of shade, lots of moving parts here. Well, I'm not that impressed, I have to admit. Things feel high mid-range in this series of capture, which actually baffles me because I was more than impressed with the nighttime shots on the 14T Pro I had with me. There may have been a difference of software between them, an update on mine, who knows, but yeah, definitely play around with the Pro mode, follow some classes, and you'll definitely take flagship-worthy results. Otherwise, left on auto, you may wake yourself with high mid-range results. Now, these have been photos. Now let's see some videos. First things first, I have to say from the get-go that the stabilization is top-notch. No matter which resolution you're using or which steady option, you're going to be blown away by the stabilization. Excellent details, excellent colors, some overexposure here and there, and let's see how the selfie checks out. So if you're a vlogger, wanna be a TikToker, well, you're definitely lacking stabilization here, would have been nice. I like the lighting and the shades and the natural face texture, but things are pretty flickery, so stabilization, digital one would be better. Let's see some colors here. By the way, we have log colorization here. You can shoot in log and then post-process it and properly achieve the colors you want with your 10-bit capture, Rec 2020. By the way, a decent amount of colors here as well, even though not as vivid as I expected, so that may be good or maybe bad depending on what you're going for, either realism or colors that pop. What has gone now is the difference between a flagship and a high mid-range phone. The image is so crisp here, you would say it was made by an iPhone, a Samsung, or maybe a first part of the year flagship. So stabilization spot on, the focus is also pretty nice, and let's see some vegetation here. I do sense a bit of oversaturation here, and the zoom is a bit steppy for me. It happens in steps, not very fluid. And the result is not on par with what Samsung can deliver, to be honest. Okay, here we have a more shady area. You can see a small boat on the water. And I would say that's pretty much it as far as filming is concerned. Something like, I would say 10% or 15% less than the Xiaomi 14 series, but the untrained eye will tell you that they're pretty much the same. Okay, now the other part of the images, this one here in Berlin, where we have this video, for example, here. We're under a bridge on the River Spree. And yes, I know you can see there's some noise here, especially if you look at this on a larger screen, but the details remain impressive and the microphone is spot on. This is the guide telling us about the museum. Definitely more noise than a flagship, but still plenty of detail. Okay, also have this one here. This is in between night and day, closer to day. That's where things are brighter, even though it was a very cloudy day, so the colors are a bit mute. And Berlin is a bit mute in colors if you're not in the graffiti area. Okay, and now let's go to the night shots of my colleague, maybe, and try this one. Stabilization stays pretty tight. A solid set of colors for nighttime capture, which is something I don't see very often. Going back to the previous Xiaomi T phones, we complained about the colors at night and stabilization, so this one is actually an upgrade. I do see some reflections here and there, but even the iPhones have those, so yeah, why complain? So in the end, an upgrade which blurs the line between flagship and high mid-range. Now I think it's time to address the connectivity. We have here 5G connectivity on Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 5.4, even infrared. So yeah, there's GPS dual bands, BDS 4 bands, Galileo 3 bands, QZSS 2 bands, Navic and GLONASS. Sadly, we still have a USB-C 2.0 port at the bottom. There's a LHDC support for high-resolution acoustics, lossless 24-bit. The calls are pretty loud and clear, and when it comes to the speed test, let's see what we achieved on Wi-Fi and on 5G. On Wi-Fi, 739 megabits in download, 870 megabits in upload. And once again, this is the Wi-Fi result. Let's see the other results. So the 5G should be here somewhere. This is the 5G result, 256 stops in download and 78.8 megabits in upload. So I would say we're doing quite fine. Okay, so the software here may surprise nobody. It's Android 14 with HyperOS on top of it. But the thing is that finally Xiaomi brought some AI to the fray. So it's HyperOS 1.0.11. You're going to get Circle to Search starting October 6th. And if you keep press the home button, you have Google Gemini.
That's correct. I'm Google Gemini.
Write an essay about the period when Cleopatra took over Egypt.
Cleopatra VII. The last pharaoh of Egypt, Cleopatra VII Philopator.
Obviously, it can write essays, it can write poetry, it can even write code for you, it can answer any questions, and you should also get the access from Gemini Live, which went live these days. So aside from that, once again, we're going to get Circle to Search on October 6th, and a cool feature here is one that lets you do translation in real time. Should be the interpreter. Suppose that I find it. Okay, so you have Bluetooth airplane mode, flashlight, cast, Xiaomi share, interpret audio, AI subtitles, which is also an AI feature. So a lot of AI here. Let's use this one, interpret audio. Okay, so interpret audio is just like the Samsung interpreter. You're going to translate from English to Chinese Mandarin. Can you point me towards the nearest store and gas station? You can choose between multiple languages, and I feel that there's more here compared to what Samsung is offering right now, which is always good news, including my own Romanian. So that's nice, and the translation happens in real time. So that's one of the features. One feature that I actually used, I was at an interview in Berlin with the folks of Xiaomi. I used the recorder here, and I actually have a Leica interview, which is 40 minutes long. And it was converted into text here. You can also do a summary, but there's too much content. So yeah, if it were a little less content, you could have gotten a summary. So basically, it can transcribe your recorded notes to text notes. So there's translation, there's this, and of course there's the AI triggered from the photo section. Okay, so let's see what we can do here. If you go here to this one and press this here, you have a lot of features to tweak. You can press create. You can also use erase, and erase Pro is 2.0 and it's even more powerful. If you press the Pro mode here, you can download the plugin, but you can also remove objects and people. People are identified automatically. You can just press them to remove them one by one. You can also remove objects as shown here, like for example this statue. It can be gone, and it's gone, and a pretty cool mask left behind it. So yeah, that's only one example. And of course, aside from that, you can also create a video with the photos and videos you have. So if I go here, let's see, maybe make a selection of multiple items. Creativity. You can do art, collage, clip, or use auto AI. It will use a musical background, it will add filters. Of course, things can get more complicated if you have more complex videos. So you see the AI interpreter, Circle to Search, AI recorder. We also have AI subtitles, which translates videos in real time. We also have that plugin I mentioned before. And let's try again maybe. This is the video you can take. You can choose the aspect ratio. You can type the idea, make a zoomed in video with funky swirls. So AI is doing the heavy lifting. The AI Notes application will do summaries, correction, and translation. Okay, so that's the AI video. I mentioned before the note-taking application. It's this one here. You have the Leica interview here. You have your note-taking here. You can start typing, create a map mine. You can do voice recorder included in the text. You can also have a summary of your text. So if you want to do the whole AI thing, you just press here. Note AI services. You have AI summary, AI layout, and AI proofreading, which corrects your text. This is AI summary. It's taking everything I had and making a sum up. There's also AI portrait, which generates avatar from your gallery and can make a portrait with a simple description, text description. to explore various versions of yourself. So a lot of AI features here once again. By the way, we have a fingerprint scanner in the screen. It's pretty snappy and fast, works for the security of your device, and I think it's time now we went for the verdict. So the pros and cons: a premium, good-looking design, rather sober, a very bright flat screen with high refresh rate, above expectation performance as you saw in Antutu for the CPU Dimensity 9300 Plus, excellent stabilization and excellent nighttime capture with a special Pro mode feature. We have very good looking bokeh, nice selfies, a full AI suite down to the circle to search, Google Gemini, interpreter, notes, AI recorder, subtitle and more. And I would probably have to say that the zoom is above expectations, and a pretty decent battery life and fast charge. On the cons, USB-C 2.0 at the bottom, there's no macro mode, there's no charger in the box, and there's some overexposure and oversaturation for the ultra-wide camera. So that's about it. Now, finally, after so many years of T phones from Xiaomi, we're getting more Leica, we're getting closer to the main series of flagships, and finally nighttime capture is viable compared to the predecessors. The CPU is one of the best MediaTeks I've seen in recent history, and the phone works just fine for gaming as well as artistic capture. I would say it's a phone for nighttime, for videography thanks to the log thing, and for AI features. It's only going to get more features as time passes, and I'm curious about the Xiaomi 15. That's it from us, a longer than usual review, but we actually went there for a quick hands-on experience and experienced everything that the phone has to offer. That's it from GSMDome.com. Goodbye.